returned. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have come back. Once again, this is the Nomad going through and wandering through the wastelands of what we call media and coming back with stories and commentary about the situation as we currently reside. I hope that everybody's having a good day. We have lots of news. I see Mr. Barkley in the chat. I saw Mr. Quinn. Hope you guys are having a great Saturday. But there's lots of news, lots and lots and lots of news. And let's get started, shall we? Suspected Chinese spies disguised as tourists tried to infiltrate Alaskan military bases. Say it isn't so. Chinese citizens posing as tourists, but suspected of being spies, have made several attempts in recent years to gain access to military facilities in this vast state studded with sensitive bases, according to U.S. officials. In one incident, a vehicle with Chinese citizens blew past a security checkpoint at Fort Wainwright in Fairbanks, several soldiers told USA Today. The vehicle was eventually stopped, and a search found a drone inside the vehicle. The occupants claimed that they were tourists who had gotten lost. Blowing through a checkpoint is getting lost? You got lost, you see a checkpoint, you don't stop, you just continue on, right? Rather than ask, where the heck are we? Many of the encounters have been chalked up to innocent mistakes by foreign visitors intent on viewing the northern lights or other attractions in Alaska, officials say. Other attempts to enter U.S. military bases, however, seem to be probes to learn about U.S. military capabilities in Alaska, according to multiple soldiers familiar with the incidents, but were not authorized to speak on them publicly. This is part of the aggression that you're seeing. Excuse me here, folks. Turn that fan down a little bit. What you're seeing is continued aggression by China, all right, on the world stage. They feel that they've been shortchanged, that no one respects them, that somehow they deserve a modicum of respect, and to them a modicum of respect is they're respected and nobody else is. Okay? Understand what this is really all about. This isn't respect for the individual nation or their society or anything like that. What they want is worship. Don't doubt me on this. The Chinese arrogance hasn't changed all that much from when. I want people to understand this. China does not look upon World War II as them being really conquered, but at least by the West. No. See, they were conquered temporarily in places, and only in places, by some other Asians, specifically the Japanese, the upstarts, who owe their whole culture to China. China hasn't changed their attitude. They look at you and me as gaijin, well, which is a Japanese term actually, are barbarians. That their culture overall is superior to every culture on the planet. They've held that view for thousands upon thousands of years. And they have good reason, do not misunderstand me, for having that mentality. It's understandable where that mentality came from. But it's not the mentality you need to have today, and it's not a working relationship with people. Okay, understand this. Culturally, they have not modernized enough. What do I mean by that? Well, no, man. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? You're insulting all of China. No, I'm not. I'm saying that the Chinese culture hasn't modernized to the point where individual freedom is a priority, where individuals are expected to act as individuals, all right, and expected to act responsibly. They still hold social cues of the family being responsible for what the child has done. And when I mean child, I mean it could be an adult child, but the children. I have a lot of respect for China. I really do. But I also recognize when you're dealing with a mentality that's still locked in a world that no longer can exist in a true monetary culture where people trade back and forth in a fair manner. You see, they always tell themselves that ripping off American companies is their right. Okay? Don't misunderstand this. It's not, they see nothing wrong with that. Ripping off technology is their right. Because we owe them. We owe them civilization in their mind. Any kind of civilized feat generated in the West pales in comparison to the great Chinese culture. And they still have that mentality, folks. And it's still a very, well, if you're in authority and you're not in authority, if you're not in authority, well, that's, you have an obligation. Your obligation to the state. Xi Jinping, Winnie the Pooh, right? Pooh Bear. Pooh Bear thinks of himself as, okay, yeah, he's the leader of China, but he's an elite. He puts himself above all the other elites, by the way. Oh, he recognizes that Putin is an elite, but he doesn't care about Putin one way or the other. You really want to know the truth. They don't care about Russia. Only to use Russia against the United States is all they care about Russia. Russia is no different than the United States to them. Except that they're in a situation where the power dynamics favor China far more than the power dynamics between China and the United States. That's their attitude. When people talk about world domination, China is truly set on world domination. They are not interested in protecting Chinese sovereignty as much as exploring or expanding, rather, all right, Chinese authoritarianism around the world. This stands in stark contrast, truly, with the Russians. And the Russians have their own problems. I'm not trying to excuse Putin or anything else. But Russia expands from a defensive mindset. Keep the people who have invaded us away. China's not worried about people invading China. You don't see them trying to build the Great Wall of China. You see them seizing territory. It's a huge difference. On to the next story. From the Wall Street Journal. U.S. is pressured to secure the Persian Gulf after Iran seizes tankers. The United States Navy steps up patrols after complaints from the United Arab Emirates. The United Arab Emirates has pressed the U.S. to make more muscular moves to deter Iran after the Islamic Republic's military seized 2 oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman in recent weeks, U.S. and Gulf officials said. The Emirate complaints expressed to the U.S. officials in Abu Dhabi, right, and Washington in recent weeks mark another moment of disappointment among American Middle East partners with security in the Persian Gulf, where more than 1/3 of the world's seaborne crude oil transits. Gulf officials say the U.S. has failed to do enough to deter. Okay, enough. The U.S. has failed to do enough? Where's France? Where are they? Where's the great EU flotilla to ensure that their interests in worldwide transit are respected? Where is the world's second largest navy? In this? China suck at anime. Seen maybe 1 or 2 good ones. I'm with Japan on this. Where is Japan? Speaking of Japan, where's the second one? They have the second largest active navy in the world, mainly for sub disruption and things like that. Where are they? They have close to 200 warships. France has an aircraft carrier. Where's Brazil's fleet? Why do I mention Japan, though, more than any of the other ones? Because they're the ones most reliant. Of all of our allies, they are the ones most reliant on Middle East oil. And everyone goes, the U.S. needs to secure this for everybody. We need to be. Screw you. Okay? Screw you and the horse you rode in on. And this goes to all you leftists out there. Screw you. If you really want a frickin' solution, it's real easy. Bomb the holy hell out of Iran and sink every frickin' ship, one of their warships. Make it a priority for a mass attack to end them as a threat in the Persian Gulf. You want to end it? That's how you end it. Otherwise, you're going to have the same shit happen again and again and again. You bomb them out of existence, and you bomb all those missile sites that they put over there in a single strike, and then you bring in B-52s, and you clobber what's left of Tehran, and you wouldn't have this problem. And it should be an instantaneous strike, folks. No guessing, no thing, just a warning. We better not see another ship pulled over. Or the consequences will, or there will be consequences. And that's how we should put it. Or there will be consequences. Because that right there ensures that they'll go ahead and try and grab another one. Let them grab it and then freaking sink them. Put another aircraft carrier group in there and finish this fight. Wipe out their entire military capability. Wipe out every freaking Republican barracks. The Republican Guard. Wipe them out of existence. Wipe out their airfields. Wipe out everything. And go in there and take every freaking power station offline that you find. And do it in a week period. You can finish this in 1 week and leave them destitute like they want the rest of the world to be. And let them understand. You want a war with us? What it's really going to be like. Not this freaking, we'll put a little missile there. We'll put a little missile there. We'll just do a little surgical strike. There's no surgical strike bullshit. Bring in B-52s. Use those to take out the entire, everything that's military with B-52s. Use the surgical strikes to eliminate every water plant, every frickin' fuel plant, every frickin' oil field, every frickin' nuclear area, right? We got plenty of missiles for this, and just swarm them in a frickin' 24-hour period of just total destruction. And then tell the rest of the world, okay, we're done now unless you assholes want to do it again. And I suggest that the rest of the world, and I would tell the rest of the world, if you don't like this from happening, then you should have stopped them in the beginning, and you better stop them from doing it again. Any questions? Thank you. Drop the mic. Walk out of the UN. Call for an emergency meeting of the UN, and while you're at the emergency meeting of the UN, tell them this is going on right now. And just show them. Bring in freaking cameras showing this is what's happening in Tehran. This is what's happening over on the coast. Here's their ships being blown out of the freaking water. Here's their subs being hunted down and exterminated around the world. You end them as a presence. You want to make a statement where this shit doesn't happen again? Where other nations go, oh, the U.S. is serious about this shit now. And if the rest of the world gets on their hind legs and says, poor me, you didn't need to do that. You just tell them flat out. You don't want it to happen again? Make sure that they don't do it. Get your fucking little asses out there and take care of it. Pardon me. How many people saw this story? Meta threatens to pull news posts from Facebook, Instagram if the California bill becomes law. Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, has threatened to remove new posts from its social media platforms should Assembly Bill 886, dubbed the California Journalism Preservation Act, becomes law. The measure authored by Assemblywoman Buffy Wicks, Democrat from Oakland, right? I don't know if there's a Republican in any of their assemblies. All right, would require social media companies, including Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, to pay monthly journalism usage fees. All right, to be determined through an arbitration process. In other words, we will decide how much you owe to give to us. Right? They're gonna steal somebody else's wealth. The money would go to a fund for payments to companies that produce content. Media companies would be required under the proposed law to spend at least 70% of that money on journalists and staff support. Local newspapers have hammered advertising revenue and staff with the rise of social media giants. All right, the hollowing of local news outlets has weakened the civic fabric of many communities, proponents of the bill say, creating news deserts. All right, I'm going to be real blunt with you. The reality is journalists are being hammered, and newspapers and so forth are being hammered because they're not getting the ad revenue. That's the reality. Ad revenue doesn't exist. It's like I said, it's not the way they want it to work. Okay? See, advertisers now can't be local. Let's go back to this for a second. this is the Sacramento Bee. Okay, how many people care what's going on in Sacramento? Very few people. All right, aside from those in California, and the Sacramento Bee, since it's the capital, has a little bit more visibility in the state of California. But outside of the state of California, nobody gives a shit about what the Sacramento Bee publishes for the most part. Okay? So advertising like this, okay? If you have an advertiser, what you need is an advertiser that has a larger presence than just in Sacramento. A local advertiser isn't gonna cut it. Why? Because nobody's gonna go to a mom and pop store in Sacramento, okay, if they live in Kansas City, Kansas. Even if they see the advertising in Kansas City, Kansas, they're not going to sit up there and it means nothing to them because they don't live in Sacramento. So the local stores, the local guys, where you had a local flavor for these things, it is meaningless to them. Now, before somebody starts whining and crying, going, "Oh yeah, that's really sad," I don't care, and I'll tell you why. Because the Sacramento Bee losing revenue isn't because advertisers outside of the state, okay, aren't paying them. They've always had local advertisers to begin with. So how is it that they're losing revenue? That these journalists are not able to make money? What's going on? The local editions, okay, that's part of the local where the local people want to sit up there and see what's going on. That hasn't changed. Well, if that hasn't changed, if the need for the local people hasn't changed, and they were able to be cost effective then, what's the difference? And I'm serious about this, folks. What's the difference then? What has changed? I'll tell you what's changed. See, nobody wants to subscribe to it anymore for news. The real problem that people like in the Sacramento Bee, Dallas Morning News, right, the Omaha World Herald have is that people were purchasing their subscriptions for news that was important to them. But to be honest, the local news was only a small part of what was important to the people that were buying the newspaper. So the subscription model disintegrated. You now need to make money from advertising. Believe it or not, there are ways to do this. The difference is that you have to sit up there and just do small little things. You have to change how you're doing the website, how the website responds to people. All right? And it doesn't have to be pop-ups. And that's the other one. The initial idea was pop-up ads. So, an ad would pop up. That doesn't work anymore. But there's another aspect to this, and it is your idea of how to entertain now has to change. These websites are suffering mainly because their entertainment value has dropped dramatically, due in a large part to the journalists themselves, because they can't write well enough to get people to subscribe to them. They can't produce content Journalists need to be sent to Arctic labor camps. I don't think it's quite like that. I think you need to learn how to sit up there, and the journalism of yesterday is gone. To become a local journalist, you're going to have to do it on your own. You're not going to be able to work for a company. Okay? It's got to be more on an individual basis. Just like YouTube, where people will sit up there and subscribe to different YouTube channels for their content, you're going to have to go with that model. But you've also got to understand it isn't going to be a subscription type of process per se. You're going to have to change with the times and understand ad revenues have to change. You're going to have to sit up there and give some kind of acknowledgement for ad revenue. And for the people that are doing ad types of things like that, they've got to concentrate on local advertising to pay for it. Just like local radio stations. Times have changed. More out of touch stuff. You want to know what causes people to sit up there and shake their heads? All right, in Sacramento, you idiots, you want to know what causes people to look at you the way they are, you journalists? Here's one. California lawmakers in Sacramento advance a bill to cool down outside areas at schools. Good old Sophie Austin from the Associated Press / Report for America. There's one of your problems right there, babe. Notice, Associated Press. Not local news. Should be local news, but you have a non-local reporter doing this. Okay. Sacramento, California. California lawmakers have advanced more than a dozen bills aimed at addressing the fentanyl crisis, including some that would impose harsher prison sentences for dealers, ahead of a critical deadline this week. Legislatures in the Assembly Senate debated measures on Wednesday as they tried to wrap up several hundred pieces of legislation before Friday. All right, the last day the bill can be passed out of its original chamber and get a chance to become law later this year. All right. But later on, some Democratic lawmakers support policies that focus on education, prevention, and treatment, while Republicans and more moderate Democrats want more law enforcement. But let's get to the bill for schools, okay, where they plan on creating less areas for heating and less areas for for uh for pavement for the kids, little kiddies that are running into this. The only way to cool down these areas, okay, seriously, the only way to cool down these areas is with what? Well, we're gonna take away all this the cement and tarmac stuff, and then we're gonna put grass, and we're gonna put trees, and we're gonna put. Are you gonna put grass and trees down? Really, in California? You're gonna put grass and trees down? What does grass and trees need? Folks, what do grass and trees need? Water. You want to cool down these areas, the only way to do it is with water. How are you going to get the water? Where's the water going to come from? You guys have already screwed up all these other areas. Where are you going to get the water for this cooling plan? To create more shaded areas? How do you plan to do that? grass and trees need fentanyl. Seriously though, you want to cool the planet? You want to bitch about we got to reduce carbon footprint. We got to do this, and that's not gonna cool the school. I'll tell you right now, it's not gonna cool the school. Well, we take away all the cement and we put down, wood chips. Oh, you can put down wood chips, okay? And how's that going to work? To be honest, I'm all for the idea. The problem is that there's no way to implement it in California. There's literally no way to implement it in California with the way that they've done it. You want to take away the problems with these schools, to be honest, what you need to do is you need to recognize that these schools are too large. You have a high school of over 500 people, it's too large. I'm going to be real blunt, and there's plenty of cities that have that. Even small cities like Omaha are most of their high schools are 2,000, 3,000 people. That's too large. It's a bad working environment for the kids, for the teachers, for the parents. The ideas of consolidated school districts is a problem. And the reason it's a problem is because of the concentration of people. When you put too many people in an area, individuality suffers. I love how all these people want to talk about how we don't want people to conform and we want students to sit up there and be able to express their individuality. And yet you cram them in schools where they're one of 10,000. Where they can't sit up there and express themselves, all right, within a local environment prior to going into a national style of an environment, right? You want them to become better rounded, more well rounded people? Start taking the schools, all right, and that are too large and break them up. That's all it would have taken. But see, there's a reason for that, and we'll get to that later. We'll talk about it a little bit later. Let's continue on with the stories of today, or the week, rather. These are just rehashing stories from the week. Giant Food, which is a grocery store chain, right, takes drastic measures to stop rampant theft in its 600 or 165 supermarkets, including putting cheaper items on shelves, limiting the number of items at the checkout, and putting razor blades in containers. Supermarket Giant said it is taking measures to curb theft in its 165 supermarkets across the country, including closing some store entrances. Other measures include locking items on shelves, hiring extra security, limiting the number of items at its self checkout, and putting razor blades in boxes that can trigger an alarm if opened. The chain's president, Ira Kress, recently told the Washington Post the new measures are a last-ditch attempt at keeping stores open amid theft, which he says has increased exponentially. Giant Foods has supermarkets across D.C., Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. No shit. So you go to the worst areas of the U.S. where all that are completely beholden to the Democrats who run the states and run these cities. Every one of these big cities in Maryland is run completely by Democrats. Same thing with Virginia. Same thing with Delaware, and of course with D.C. And you'll wonder why rampant crime is out of control, especially at grocery stores. You put in policies where all you got to do is shoplift, and shoplifting is not illegal. And what's the result? See, Giant Foods, unlike many other retailers like Walmart, Nike, Kroger, Target, Macy's, and Best Buy, have yet to close any schools. Or our stores, excuse me, not schools. Last June, a giant in DC made headlines when thieves were filmed brazenly filling garbage bags and a shopping cart with laundry detergent and walking right out the door. And they did nothing. And you wonder why we're having problems. Now, during the week, there was a story about how North Korea was going to launch a spy satellite to spy on the U.S. And I tried to warn people about if you've got the capability to put something into orbit, you can hit any place in the world with a nuclear weapon if you have one. The ability to launch and successfully launch satellites means you have intercontinental ballistic capability. That's not a joke. That's reality. But right on cue, North Korea fails to launch spy satellite as rocket plunges into the sea. See, once again, MSNBC or NBC News can't even get the first sentence correct. It didn't fail to launch; it launched it. It was a failed launch attempt in that the rocket plunged into the sea. Okay, but they launched it. Pyongyang said it would soon try another launch after learning what went wrong in an unusually frank acknowledgement of failure by Kim Jong un's regime. North Korea said Wednesday it failed to launch its first spy satellite into space in a blow to the nuclear armed state's efforts to strengthen its military capabilities. Ding, 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 amid growing tensions with its neighbors and the United States. How are these tensions any different today than they were last week, the week before, or the week before that? What do you mean growing tensions? They're not growing. They meant to do that. They were trying to stop Godzilla. I don't think Pyongyang was threatened by Godzilla, Matt. The newly developed Cholima one rocket, which was carrying the Malingong 1 spy satellite, was launched as scheduled at 6:27 a.m. Right from the Soya satellite launching ground in the country's northwest, according to North Korean state agency KCNA. It then fell into the sea off the west coast of the Korean Peninsula after losing thrust due to an abnormal starting of the second stage engine. Really? So the second stage. Who wrote this stupid story anyway? Uh, Story is written by Stella Kim, Arata Yamamoto, Jennifer Jett, and Jimin Lee. Hey guys, learn how to write. This is one of the problems that you're having with journalists. You want to know the truth of it. It's stupid shit like that. Then we have this story from the Washington Post. Georgia probe of Trump broadens to activities in other states. An Atlanta area investigation of alleged election interference by President Donald Trump and his allies has broadened to include the activities in D.C. and several states, according to two people with knowledge of the probe. A fresh sign that prosecutors may be building a sprawling case under Georgia's racketeering laws. No, what it means is they're desperate. That what they have isn't enough to go forward with an indictment. That's what it means. WAPO, you can say what you want. Oh, Trump, we're going to get it this time. Oh, their investigation is broadening. That means they're desperate, folks. Well, they're violating Georgia's racketeering laws. What racketeering? What are you coming up with? You're trying to play freaking semantic games here. Unless you can show absolute corruption from government officials, okay, how are you going to sit up there and even come close to attempting something like racketeering? How do you even approach that? How? Where do you think all this is coming from? This is an absolute joke, folks. It's an absolute joke considering how this stuff actually is. It really is. Gay Floridians are leaving in droves, says Pride organizer. Really? Many pride groups in Florida are canceling the month-filled celebrations as multiple anti-LGBTQ bills hitting the state have left the community and its allies fearful of repercussions. Lake County pride events, however, are moving ahead. It's not exactly being welcomed by the community where we're having it. In fact, yesterday I just got a cease and desist from them telling me not to mention them at all. I don't want to do this I don't want this to take place, but we're gonna persevere, said the group's president and CEO Daniela Olivani. All right, on this episode of the New Abnormal Politics podcast. And that is what it is. It's all politics now because of what they've done in targeting children. And if before somebody tries to come back and go, oh, that's not true. No, man, that's not true. No, man, it's not true. This has nothing to do with children. Then why do you have at Disney World a freaking man dressed as a quote unquote Disney princess? All right, trying to shake the hands of little girls and boys going through the exhibit. It's all about targeting children. It has been about targeting children. It has been about destroying society as a whole for a long, long time. But I don't see people packing U-Hauls in droves. The word was droves. In droves, leaving the state of Florida. Really? Where are they going? They sure as hell ain't coming out here. Now, it's a bit of a drive, I'll admit. But if you're leaving Florida in droves, you're going to have to drive quite a ways before you quote unquote find a welcoming community somewhere. You're going to have to go all the way into Virginia if you're going north. If you're going west, California is right down the road. That's the closest you're going to find. Well, New Mexico. I guess they could stop in New Mexico. New Mexico is out of their mind. If they're going to go diagonally, there's some areas. Illinois. Chicago's got its own problems, though. Which leaves only one haven for these people. And it's becoming a haven, and that's Colorado. Sounds great. I wonder if I should move to Florida. A lot of advantages to moving to Florida. A lot of advantages. I'll be honest with you. I've thought about it. And I'm not exaggerating. I have seriously thought about it. For one thing, no state income tax. Just putting it out there. The story that many people saw, Lululemon backlash after firing staff who stopped thieves. Go woke, go broke. Lululemon is facing claims of being woke after firing two of its female employees for attempting to stop shoplifters openly stealing from the outlet in Peachtree Corners, Georgia. According to a statement provided to local media, Jennifer Ferguson and Rachel Rogers were fired by the apparel company for breaching company policy, which says workers should not put their safety at risk to stop thieves. Okay, stop right there. I can understand that, believe it or not, that's not a bad policy. Because you don't want your employees hurt. But if somebody does risk their lives to defend the store, all right, you applaud them. These kind of policies were put in place because people were being fired in the past for not stopping the thieves. That's why these policies came to the forefront. Not because, oh, wait a minute here. Some users on TikTok, all right, have some users on Twitter, labeled the company woke, with one writing, Lululemon, another woke supporters, all right, now wants to be tolerant of thieves. This is crazy. The sportswear brand is just the latest company to be accused of going woke, similar to backlashes against firms including Bud Light, which has faced a boycott over the partnership with transgender influencer. Let's be honest, child groomer. All right, all right. That's what that was. And Target over grooming for children. Oh, LGBTQ pride range. No, it isn't. It's for their targeting of children, and everybody knows it. Now, Lululemon is not accused of targeting children. I'll give you that. But if your employees do what's necessary to stop thieves in your store, you should be applauding them. This is the problem with this crap. You have a right to defend yourself and your property. There's nothing that says, well, this security person has to have, certain certifications. Why? You have to be certified to be able to protect your property? Really? No, Lululemon deserves the backlash that they're getting. Now, I've never been there. I've never used it. Lululemon. Right? I don't know how to pronounce it. It looks like Lululemon. Let's get rid of some of this other stuff. Let's talk about more stuff in society. This is absolute. This story is absolutely hilarious, folks. Queen Cleopatra director responds to Egyptian backlash. This is gonna say it all, folks. I'm telling you. The director of Queen Cleopatra documentary, Tina Garavari, I cannot pronounce your name, and I'm not trying to mispronounce it. Garavi, we'll say it that way. Garavi all right, has responded to the backlash and outrage her film has caused, directing directly directing addressing direct I should be directly addressing Egypt's discontent. Queen Cleopatra premiered on Netflix on May 11th. It depicts Pharaonic Queen of Egypt as a black-skinned woman, which led to an outrage accusations of falsifying history. In an interview she conducted with Variety magazine, she confirmed that she was faced with violent outrage after choosing black actress Adele James to play the character Cleopatra in the series. Most of the worst reactions were from Egyptians, which she questioned as they themselves are Africans. Now, here it is, folks. While shooting, I became the target of a huge online hate campaign. Egyptians accused me of blackwashing and stealing their history. Some threatened to ruin my career, which I wanted to tell them was laughable. I was rooting it very well for myself. Thank you very much. In response to these accusations, she explained that the industry has been working to correct the course of whitewashing attempts and give current and future generations a more diverse image of history. It's not. History is history. Your quote unquote reimagining of history is fantasy, not history. And I'm going to be real blunt about this. To be honest, I don't think it was a horrible thing that Adele was played as Queen Cleopatra. The problem is that you're trying to play Queen Cleopatra with the sentimentality of Americans that are from African descent, or African Americans, if you want to talk about it from that perspective, all right, that have nothing to do with the historical time frame in which this actually took place within. They're trying to reimagine what history actually was like. And Cleopatra is it's a fascinating story. And it doesn't matter what actress you give to play Cleopatra, as long as you're trying to create a true idea of what the time was like. If you're trying to recreate what history was like, what their mentality was like, and their mentality was not, well, this is how I, as an African American, all right, think that the history should be. That is the problem. You're not trying to tell history. You're not trying to explain history. And when it's inconvenient, how many people ignore it? There should be instances where they're showing Cleopatra as she fought for the throne, okay, against her brothers. They should have sit up there and gone into the history involved in that. Because, quite frankly, it's phenomenal. But see, they didn't do that. They made this about white supremacy that Hollywood has pushed for years. We need to liberate our imaginations and boldly create a world in which we can explore our historical figures without fearing the complexity that comes with their depiction. Really? In other words, we need to sit up there and reimagine history, right? Create a world? No, you tell people what the world was like. And I have no problem with an actress being one color or another. I have a problem when she's playing a black African American as Cleopatra. She couldn't even step outside of herself to play an Egyptian queen. Now, the actress may have that capability. We'll never know. Because that was not the intent, all right, behind this story. That's the problem. But our society is in a lot of trouble, folks. And it's here's an example. When my husband died, widow's fire drove me to have casual sex with 15 men in a year. It sounds shocking, but experts say it's part of grief, and we must stop treating it as a taboo. By Samantha Brick for the Daily Mail. To an outsider, it must have looked like a fairly ordinary first date. Alex Delaney, then in her mid 30s, sitting opposite a pleasant professional man at a coffee shop, exchanging light chit chat. You might have raised an eyebrow if you had known that it was just 4 months since the death of Alex's deeply loved husband, Nick. That would be nothing, however, to your reaction when you heard what happened next. The tall Swedish banker sitting opposite Alex leaned forward and bluntly asked her if they could go back to her house, the former marital home, and have sex. And Alex couldn't agree quickly enough. And so, in other words, when your spouse dies, it turns you into a frickin' raging slut. That did I miss something here? Did I misinterpret this in some way? When your spouse dies, you become slutified, woman. I'm not talking about how people handle grief. People do handle it in various different ways. But what it says to me is you have no morality. You've lost your moral underpinnings. You shouldn't be running around going, okay, it's just grief, so I'm banging everything that moves. Is that the example you want to set? I'll show you how I'm grieving my husband. I'm banging everybody, including all of his friends, because well, now I have the chance. I don't know what you women think, because quite frankly, guys would not react that way. All right, and I'm not talking about sleeping around. I'm talking about if you went to your friends as a guy and said your wife had died, and I'm banging every chick that came down the line. The vast majority of guys, I know women think, oh yeah, you'll be considered a stud. No, you won't. You'll be considered an ass. You'll be considered a loser, and you will not be garnering their male friends will not be telling them, hey, great job. They'll be looking and go, what the hell is wrong with you, dude? That's what'll be happening. This idea, I'm going to tell you right now, this idea, all right, the guys are celebrating because of the number of women they slept with by other guys. The other guys look at them as studs and admire them. No, they don't. I can tell you right now, it doesn't work that way. Guys hate them. And when they're single, they hate them even more. No, man, that can't be true. That can't be true. Trust me, it's true. You know why? Because this guy ends up sleeping with the girl that this other guy liked. You think that guy's happy about him sleeping with that woman? That girl that he wanted to date? That girl that he wanted to sit up there and have a relationship with, and now he finds out that this guy slept with her and he slept with 6 other women. So this guy's busy crossing off. Can't talk to that girl. Can't talk to that girl. That's what guys do. Oh, there are scum. Don't get me wrong, that want to sleep around, and other guys. Oh yeah, they can't think with anything aside from their dicks. Their dicks do all their thinking for them. But the vast majority of guys aren't like that. The vast majority. More stories about where our society has been heading. A British reporter had a big Me Too story. All right, her scoop, and her editor killed it. What a friggin' surprise. Inside the Financial Times newsroom this winter, one of its star investigative reporters, Madison Marriage, right, had a potentially explosive scoop involving another newspaper. The prominent left-wing columnist Nick Cohen had resigned from the Guardian News and Media. And this is a Marxist outfit, folks. All right, and Ms. Marriage had evidence that his departure followed years of unwanted sexual advances and groping female journalists. So, in other words, the same people, once again, who promptly preach, me too, and you gotta believe women, are out there, all right, abusing women at every opportunity. And when the other journalists find out about it, one tries to do a story, and it gets squashed. Ms. Merritt specialized in such investigations. She won an award for exposing the Hansi black tie event for Britain's business elite. A technology mogul had got indicted on rape charges after another article, but her investigation on Mr. Cohen, which he hoped would begin a broader look at sexual misconduct in the British news media, was never published. The Financial Times editor, Rola Khalif, killed it, according to interviews with a dozen Financial Times journalists. What a surprise. Why did Ms. Khalif kill it? This is Ms. Khalif. Okay. Well, she said that Mr. Cohen did not have a big enough business profile to make him an FT, Financial Times story. Yeah, the left-wing journalists. And it's not just the United States, folks. How many people saw this story? No, that was not the story I was looking for. All right. Indian girl stabbed to death on camera, and people just walked on by. On a dimly lit street at the outskirts of India's capital of New Delhi, a surveillance camera captured the final horrifying moments of a 16-year-old girl. A man dressed in a blue t-shirt shoved her against the wall before stabbing her repeatedly until she fell on the ground lifeless. But even then, he did not stop his attack. He kicked her battered body several times, stabbed her again, then picked up what appeared to be a large slab, held the object over her with both hands, and let it crash down on top of her, forming clouds of dust. He walked away. Then he came back and did it again. Several people walked by during the attack, which was over in less than 2 minutes, but only one person even tried to intervene before running away. Most moved past the violent assault. Another person stopped and watched. The Washington Post is not linking footage because of its graphic nature. Understandable. All right. The public murder, which took place just before 9 p.m. local time on Sunday, is the latest example of the gruesome violence against women that continues to plague the country. No, this is something that's going to plague everybody because no one is being told that you're accountable, all right, for your fellow man to help them out when somebody desperately needs help. Letting people get butchered on the street and you just walk on by? No. See, what we need to focus on is crap like this. Resurfaced video shows Target diversity chief suggesting employees may leave. All right, if she wasn't suggesting it, she was telling the employees they may leave if they think differently. Target's chief diversity and inclusion officer told employees in a resurfaced video that they should get on board with the company's woke agenda or leave. That is not suggesting, that's telling them outright. The video from June of 2021 shows Kiera Fernandez speaking with two other DEI officers, all right, from 3M and Cargill, and the Vice President of Career and Professional Development at St. Catherine's University. So you end up at a college, a college campus, and you have Fernandez saying that comments that resurfaced, all right, not everyone is going to believe or buy into our strategies and our priorities on this topic. They just aren't. You want to know why? You want to know why? Nor should they. You want to know why? Because your priorities aren't the company's priorities. Your priorities are actually detrimental to the company's priorities of making money. That's why. Catholic College promotes political cult ideology. Shocking. Hey, Bobby. Now, Florida man story. A Florida man was sentenced to 20 years of probation after pointing his firearm and shouting racial slurs at a group of black teens. Really? Not a lick of prison time for a racist gunman who targeted black teens. Targeted? Okay, let's talk about this. See, you can't have a discussion when you got people that are this lost. Kalen Womack, you're a liar. Okay? You're not an honest person. Okay? You can't have an honest discussion about these issues because you refuse to be honest. You don't believe me? Let's go on with this. Remember, he was targeting blacks. What's the proper sentence for a man who walked up to a group of black teens, minded their business with a gun in hand and a mouthful of racial slurs? According to NBC 6 South Florida, the man guilty of this very thing escaped prison time. Mark Bartlett, all right, was accused of confronting a group of black teens riding their bicycles in the Martin Luther King Jr. Day protest against housing inequality in 2019. In other words, these people were sitting up there demonstrating. They weren't just, oh, I'm just riding my bike down the lane and this guy just came accosted me. No, they were blocking traffic. Video caught him charging toward the boys holding a gun, yelling the N-word while they stopped traffic for the demonstration. Do you see this? Do you see how this is going on there? You're saying these people were targeted because of the color of their skin. No, they were targeted because of what they were doing, illegally protesting. This was an illegal protest. And you want this guy jailed because he brandished a gun, brandished a firearm. I'm sorry. Now, should he have brandished a firearm? Don't know. As far as going out there with it, don't have a problem. And if he yelled a racial slur, so what? And I mean that. Yelling racial slurs, well, I don't approve of them, is not illegal, jackasses. Okay, especially when you play the game of yelling the racial slur when one person says it, but it's not a racial slur when another person says it. No, it's either a racial slur or it isn't. You don't get to play the stupid game. Well, say they're a protected minority. No, man. Don't you understand? They're protected. Protected from what? So they need protection because they can't handle it themselves? They got to be patted on the head because they're just not capable of understanding reality? I'm not even giving Catholics a hard time. I'm just pointing out that the totalitarian ideology of leftists is everywhere, even in religion. No. Bobby B, you're completely right. You are completely right about that. It is everywhere, unfortunately, and it's unfortunate. But that's not the only story along these lines. Here, let's go over to this one. Hate-filled law school commencement speech shows America getting too dangerous a place, says an Army veteran. A recent graduate from the City University of New York has sparked fierce outrage over her commencement speech. Outnumbered panelists sounded off on the liberal speaker who claimed law in America is a manifestation of white supremacy. Law school graduate Fatima Musa Mohammed said during her May 12th speech that the law continues to oppress people in the nation and later labeled the NYPD as fascist for not arresting criminals. All right? Really? And you wonder why we're having problems in our nation. I was about to graduate from Yale Law, and we were all happy and excited for this moment. And we sit there, and the faculty speaker gets up and starts spouting out all the most evil stuff I have ever heard, the Army veteran said, noting that audience then applauded the speaker for pushing transgender surgeries for minors. You wonder why we're in the situation we're in? Yeah, me too, Bobby B, to be honest. Seriously. That's the problem with this. This attitude of minorities, and I don't mean this in the sense of race, although race is a part of it. I mean it in the sense of somehow the minority opinion has to dominate, has to be the primary opinion. All right. What that does is it destroys society because it fractures larger society into smaller little sub societies of their own, and they come into conflict with one another. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, this story exemplifies it. Right from CBS News, Black gym employee says she was fired after calling out racism. A jury awarded her $11.3 million. After she was hired by high-end Equinox Gym in 2018, Robin Europe, a black personal trainer, was quickly promoted to oversee a group of 15 employees. But soon, she alleged, a white employee created a toxic atmosphere by repeatedly making vulgar comments about the black women's bodies as well as objecting to her being his boss. Europe's employment didn't last long. Less than a year. Now you got to remember, this woman got promoted with over all these other people, over a group of 15 people. Okay, for starting there, she was fired, and the reason for termination was the crux of a lawsuit she filed in 2020. She alleged that she faced discrimination due to her race and gender, and that she lost her job because Equinox retaliated against her for calling out racism and sexism at the club. The gym claimed that she was fired for arriving late 47 times in her 11 months at the company. You can't be on time at least once a week? Actually, you were averaging more than once a week being late. Going to work late every single week and more. And yet she thinks, oh no, it was people making comments. Gee, I wonder why people would sit up there and make comments to you, and about your lack of a freaking work ethic. And what gets me is that they got a jury to award her $11 million? Really? Boy, they sit up there and she faced a toxic workplace to such a degree it allegedly demoralized her and caused her to have substantial emotional distress, exacerbated her bulimia. Really? If I was these guys, I would take this woman and continue to take her to court and get this overturned. Now, whether or not they do it, just to get rid of it, who knows? You think that's bad? Let's take a look at this one. Psychologist wants to expose and shame professors giving black students lower grades than whites. One of the world's most influential psychologists called for an equity audit on all professors and universities in order to ensure that the grades were distributed evenly among racial groups in a given course in an article published in Psychology Today. Roy Baumeister, PhD, all right, is one of the world's most influential and most cited psychologists with expertise in human morality. Really? What human morality? I say this is not only to address this social problem of justice, but also to alert many friends in academia to get ahead of the curve on this. In other words, what you do is you just say, everyone, we're going to give everybody the same grade. Your work doesn't matter. Right? That's what you want. And you wonder why Roy Baumeister here, all right, should be tossed. I would just fire this son of a bitch. If I was in charge of the school, he would be on the he wouldn't be teaching school anymore, and he'd be gone. Because he's not interested in merit. He's not interested in academic achievement. And if you're not going to be interested in academic achievement, why are you at the university? Because it's a part of an indoctrination. It has nothing to do, all right, with merit. Just like the same idiot sits up there and goes, or another idiot says it's bad science to believe that biological sex is binary. These people need to be let go. They need to be shown the door. Hi, Chris. How many people saw this story? This is a surprise. Crews halt damaged wind turbine that was spinning out of control on Deer Island. What a surprise! Emergency crews have halted a damaged wind turbine that was spinning out of control on Deer Island on Memorial Day. Winthrop's Deer Island is the home of the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority wastewater treatment plant. There are two 100-foot tall turbines rated at 600 kilowatts and located on the island's southwest side. The island also features walking trails and space for picnicking. According to the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, someone walking around the public access area of Deer Island Treatment Plant noticed that two of the wind turbines had something hanging from the blades around 10 a.m. The person then called the police. In other words, oh, we're all about wind power, but these things, they constantly self-destruct. And that's the problem with these things. These things, the idea that somehow wind power works, it's funny. If there's no wind, the wind turbines don't spin. If there's too much wind, they turn them off because they'll just self-destruct otherwise. In other words, at its maximum capability of generating power, you've got to turn the thing off because it's out of control. So how do you fix this? Believe it or not, there's methods to fix this, but they're not going to look at it. The design of these turbines, I understand why they went with the designs because of the simplicity of them. The problem is they're not going to be effective, and the noise they generate, all right, makes it so that nobody wants them around. And the maintenance required to keep these things running effectively is ridiculous. All right, let's talk about some. Let's talk about the animals. A raccoon was euthanized after the woman took it to Petco for a nail trim, and customers kissed it. A raccoon was taken to a pet store in Maine by a woman who wanted its nails cut. It had to be killed because there was no non-lethal method for testing for rabies. Wildlife officials in Maine had to perform a lethal rabies test on a raccoon that was brought into Petco, last Tuesday by a woman wanting it to have its nails trimmed. While the raccoon was in the store, customers kissed it, according to the Maine Department of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. The animal tested negative for rabies after the department released surveillance footages of the woman in an appeal to help from the public in identifying her. Why? Is it illegal to have a raccoon as a pet? This woman may have kept this raccoon for a pet for a long period of time and then found out, oh no, all right, they're going to sit up there because it's also considered a wild animal, all right, and she didn't have the proper paperwork. That, well, we're just going to kill the raccoon. Because we got to test for rabies. Have to. Have to test it for rabies that way. How about checking for rabies in a different manner? Just putting it out there. Speaking of rabies, what do we have here? More raccoons. Only this one's at a pool party. And it's a family of raccoons at a pool party. These damn raccoons are friggin' everywhere. Now, I don't think that the raccoons are having a good time at this point because they're probably trying to figure out how the hell to get out of the water. Then again, maybe not. Do you think that they came in and grabbed all these raccoons and sit up there and did rabies tests on all these? Just asking. You know, Petco friggin' freaked out about a raccoon. Should we be trying to euthanize these as well? Wildlife officials reported an alligator in Arizona, all right, is likely a beaver. I don't think there's very many alligators here in Arizona, I'll be honest with you. Wildlife officials said reports of an alligator sightings in an Arizona channel, all right, likely stemmed from the presence of a far more mundane animal, a beaver. Rumors circulated on social media about the presence of an alligator in Lake Havasu City's Bridgewater Canal or channel, right? And unclear photos were taken at nighttime and sent to the Arizona Game and Fish Department to depict an animal some observers said resembles a swimming alligator. Local police were also reported seeing an unidentified animal swimming in the channel, but they did not speculate as to the species. Tom Caden with the Arizona Game and Fish Department said investigators did not find any evidence of an alligator in the area. He said the animal seen in the photos is likely a beaver, as the swimming mammals often found to be responsible are reported for alligator sightings. I don't know if people are identifying beavers as alligators. I think it's. I, I'm not saying it's not possible, but alligators and beavers do not look at anything alike. Okay? I can see people mistaking a muskrat for a beaver, but I can't see them mistaking an alligator for a beaver. All right, final story. Final story of the day. What is this? This was seen swimming in a river in South Carolina. And people are speculating what in the hell could this thing be? And what people are now thinking, according to the quote unquote experts, is they believe that this is a sea slug. Okay? That has now gone into the river. Now, I did not know that they would go into fresh water, but this is what they think it actually is. They think it's a sea slug. And to be honest, its movement kind of looks like it. But then again, who really knows? We'll never know, folks. We'll never know. There are all sorts of creatures out there in the wild. All right, everyone, that's all I've got for today. Hope that you enjoyed the show. Thanks for coming, everybody, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye, everyone.